I'm Kate.
I'm Elle.
We're down to Faye, who you might recognize from Bloomsbury's ACOTAR 10th anniversary video. Usually, I would have been complaining about the lack of an announcement, but because we made it into that compilation video, I was like, guys, don't be entitled. We'll get an announcement when we get an announcement. Don't leave rude comments. But otherwise, I would have been very pissed. Because let's just all restock our clown makeup and circle May 21st, International Tea Day, which we've kind of decided is like our next scheduled delusion.
I don't know. I have a lot of follow-up questions because SJM didn't post anything either.
That was so weird to
Like-
not at least post an acknowledgement of the
This
10th
is-
anniversary of
Yeah, your series.
a series this big, or
Well-
it to not been a collab post between SJM and Bloomsbury.
Well, because last year she posted videos about the spring
the
court.
spring court, yeah.
So what's going on?
Well,
But
there's
maybe
also-
Tea Day isn't.
I don't know if there's drama going on. I mean, you can't just trust Reddit users who say like, I heard there's Bloomsbury SJM drama, but it does seem like there's something going on.
I mean, again, it's her series, and for her not to have posted something seems
It's
weird.
Well, there's also all these rumors about, so there's another series that came out. What did I say it was called? Elite Silver or something?
I don't remember.
And there's, because it's under a pen name and it's a romantasy book. It kind of came out of nowhere. And they're saying that it could be SJM. I don't think it is. I was like, I haven't read it fully, but I was flipping through and I didn't get that sense. To me, if you're going under a pen name, like entering the romantasy genre, you might be like a mainstream writer or something.
A pen name feels like you're trying to break out of the mold that's expected of you.
Maybe it's Brandon Sanderson.
I mean,
Like,
anything is
read
possible.
that. So yeah, I don't think it's just SJM, but it does say from a new series under a pen name from a New York Times best-selling author is what it says.
Ooh.
And it's Penguin Random House, which I feel like SJM wouldn't be able. I mean, I don't know what her contract looks like, but it would be kind of weird if she were able to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it works with a pen name, but if she were able to use another publishing company.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there's drama there or not, but I guess we'll just have to wait till May 21st to be disappointed.
Can't wait.
Well, also, welcome to all of the new listeners that we met at Vampire Fan Weekend.
We had so much fun. We met so many cool people. We heard a lot of hot takes and unpopular opinions. And I meant to take notes at the panels, which were really interesting because I had not been to, like, Nashville has a budget Comic-Con kind of like I went and saw Norman Reedus or something, but I've never been to panels like that.
This one was mostly just the fans asking questions.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they didn't have a moderator. So there were times that the person answering the question was just kind of like going on and on. I feel like if there was a moderator, they could have gotten some more questions in. But overall, I thought it was really like the questions were good. The answers were actually like well thought out. Like some of my favorite things, we went to one that was it was Damon and Stefan from Vampire Diaries. And someone asked about the ending. And so Ian was talking about how he thinks the brothers should have died together.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paul Wesley was talking about someone pitched to him an idea where there would have been at the end a spell or a curse or something that would have wiped the town's memory of vampires. So the ending would have been Elena getting back to her human life with no memory of the brothers. And like gut reaction, I hate it. But the more I think on it, I'm like, I actually kind of liked it.
Shocking. You know, like in a good way, like just to change, like flip the script, change everything. It was a very interesting perspective. But as you say that about the moderators, Ian and Paul can chatter, and like not in a bad way.
Yes.
It's fun to listen to them, but there were so many people lined up to ask questions.
It didn't get to ask their questions.
And they were so nice. They put a lot of thought into every answer, which is fantastic, but it means that they would start talking about something and then keep talking about it. My favorite was at the end, they're like speed round, and they just kept like, rambling together. Like it was great conversation, and it was so fun to watch them, but a moderator probably would have gotten more questions in there.
And then kind of the opposite of the way they were was the guy from the originals.
Yeah, Daniel Gillies.
He
I think
was
that's how you say it.
sassy, like, he came across a little rude, but I don't think he was, like, I think that's just his personality and, like, sense of humor, because he was very direct and, like, deadpan.
That was interesting. I guess that must have been a scheduling thing because Daniel was on the day when they had more of the Twilight panel instead of being
Mhm.
on the same days. So he may have just had to fly back for something. But he was up on stage by himself. So we were like,
Yeah.
what's going on? And honestly, Elijah was one of my favorite characters
I
from the
know, me
originals.
too.
I think Elena should end up with Elijah. You
I would
know,
have
like
watched that.
he just, they had such a moment together when they were first met and were working
Mhm.
together. But Daniel Gillies, it's like he took everybody's questions seriously and he gave an answer, but sometimes it was so serious of an answer and so direct. I'm like, just play with it. These
He
people are,
wasn't pandering to the crowd, like,
yeah.
Ian especially was after every single answer he gave, he'd be like, "Thanks for asking that question, you rocked." He
Yeah.
said, "You rocked" every time,
It was a
and
little
it's like
over the top, but it
yeah,
was
it came
sweet.
across a little, like, not I
It,
don't know,
it came, what's the word I'm looking for?
sincere?
Insincere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like and some of the things Daniel was like, I don't want to give you misinformation. Like, I'm not somebody that's qualified to make
Mhm.
these. Of course not. These are, like, they're silly questions, they're serious, but, like, just have fun with it.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't think he was trying to be an asshole, and some of it was hilarious, the things he was saying.
Like, the girl who'd gotten a tattoo of his signature, he was like, "What if I turn out to be the next Bill Cosby?" And everyone's like, "Huh," and then he's like, "For all you know, I'm Harvey
And they
Weinstein."
were like, "Dude, you gotta stop." But he was like, "You don't you
But
don't
he
know."
has a good point, like, at this point, there's no celebrity or man in general that we can trust enough to get tattooed on our bodies.
And it is
It's just not a good idea.
hilarious. We were dying listening to it, but there's a moment where you're like, just play with it, just joke around, just move on, like, don't make her feel terrible.
Well, and now it's like we can look back on these shows and movies and we have, like, consent is much more talked about.
Yeah, some of them didn't age well.
So, yeah, some of them didn't age well. I did think it was funny that Ian was talking about how creepy it was that Damon was dating Elena given his age, and we both looked at each other like, "You dated her in real life?"
Yeah,
And there
Nina
was
was, like,
quite the age difference.
barely 20 and you in your 30s when you started
It's
dating
like his
Nina, but
frontal lobe had developed to a point. It's like they're gaining self-awareness. The men are gaining self-awareness, but not quite all the way. And then with the Twilight one, the actor who plays Carlisle was talking about how he never asked the vampires if they wanted to be turned. I mean,
yeah, Carlisle was turning people without consent.
granted, they were dying most of the time,
Yeah.
but it was like it's just interesting to look back on these through a 2025 lens.
And I did think the Cullens were up on the stage together. It was the actress that was first Victoria,
Mhm.
Rochelle Lefebvre, and then it was also
Jasper
yeah, so
and
Jackson Rat
Alice,
not Jackson.
Jackson Rathbone, and Ashley Green.
Yeah, I was about to, like, mix Jasper Rathbone, Jackson Rathbone, and Ashley Green, Kellen Lutz, and then Peter Facinelli.
Mhm.
So they were up there in general just, like, answering questions. Um,
Jackson Rathbone was definitely the most engaging.
I think he
He's
was,
so
like, the
cute.
moderator on the
Mhm.
sly because he was kinda handling the questions and keeping
Yeah.
things going. But I thought it was really funny. They were talking about their jokes that they had made about Esme leaving Carlisle, or, like, somebody asked a question, like, "Why do you think Carlisle kept, like, making
Making
children or
these,
growing
yeah.
this family?" And, like, of course, I'm sure he was lonely or these opportunities presented themselves, but they made a lot of jokes about how Esme was tired of Carlisle, and you could tell every once in a while to, like, bring the family together and they'd have a new child, but they made so many jokes about it that it actually was hilarious
Yeah.
about Esme just being tired of Carl's crap.
When it was just, like, fun behind the scenes stuff of so Jackson Rathbone was talking about how when he was younger and his older sister would bring home a date, his dad would always be cleaning a gun. That was, like, his little
Intimidation.
yeah, intimidation, and so when the director when Catherine Hardwicke, is that her name?
Uh-huh.
When she heard about that, that's why Charlie is cleaning a gun in that scene.
When he, like,
Like
racks the gun when
yeah.
Edward comes to pick Bella up for a date for the first
So, like,
time.
I love little behind the scenes, and it's pretty clear that they would all be in to make a Midnight Sun movie, but there's no fucking way that, like, Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart would go back, but
Except for Peter Facinelli. He's like, "I haven't read it. I don't wanna
yeah.
does Edward hate me? I don't wanna know."
So
It
it
was
was
funny.
very fun, yeah.
They were a lot of fun, and then, of course, Ian and Paul had a million stories about each other.
Mhm.
Trying to think of a good one. Even just, like, stories like I don't know if I didn't know this before, but Paul actually introduced Joseph Morgan to the casting
Yeah, I
director
didn't know that. I love Joseph
because they were
Morgan.
still trying to cast Klaus, and Paul had been friends with Joseph's ex-girlfriend, and so in a roundabout way, it was like, you should consider this guy, and so he put it out there. I mean, Joseph Morgan got the part
And
like
he's
on his
perfect
own,
for it.
but
Turn
Paul
it
Wesley
off.
was like joking, rip off.
Rip off.
He was like,
Torn it
technically,
off.
I got him his job, so they were funny amongst each other. And I think somebody asked a question if they had ever watched Twilight or
Oh, yeah, they
like,
had not watched each other's, like, specifically Nikki Reed and
yeah.
Ian, if they had watched Twilight and Vampire Diaries, and they hadn't.
No, well, Nikki came running out from behind the curtain to correct that. She had tried to sit with Ian to watch, I think, one of them, but they were funny, just kind of like teasing each other about that, or like, do you watch the other vampire shows? Like, it was just a lot of fun to be in the atmosphere and
And, like, a
reminisce.
group of people with similar interests, and, like, you don't have to feel like a dork about liking vampire stuff.
Oh my gosh, and everybody had a lot of opinions,
A
especially
lot of
about like
opinions.
Bonnie and Damon and what could have
And
been.
Caroline and Klaus.
Yeah, or even just like Rebecca. I felt so bad for Rebecca so many times in Vampire Diaries. I mean, in the originals too, they just did her dirty.
Yeah. So
But
it was fun.
we really enjoyed being there. A lot of fun.
I like emailed the people and I was like, we had so much fun. Thanks. So the Supernatural one in October, like,
We're available.
I would love to go to that one too. I loved Supernatural.
That would be
I
so
would have
much
to
fun.
rewatch all like 1 million episodes, but
Plenty of time before then.
and want to give a shout out to the Mississippi Book Club girlies because I was just talking to Mary Beth on Instagram and she told me that they had just read Blood Over Brighthaven, which I had not heard of, but it has an academic setting, like an interesting magic system and mystery, and they listen to us, so obviously women of taste. I had the worst New Year's Eve of my life in Tupelo, Mississippi, but I don't hold it against them.
Okay.
I did also just start On Wings of Blood, the audiobook, because Podium sent us the audiobook before I think it comes out May 23rd or something. Because we're finally starting to get arcs of stuff. Like we got one from Stasia Stark and our new BFF KF Breen. And I will definitely do a full On Wings of Blood episode after we get done with KF Breen month. And then the first week in June, we have to do a full Black Dagger episode because the show comes out June 5th. So I feel like that and then On Wings of Blood. I am enjoying that book. I was thrown off because when it starts, she has fallen into this world and she's found by this vampire and he has an army with him. So I was picturing like 20s. I was picturing adults.
Okay.
But then they get to the castle and I won't like spoil what happens, but she ends up in a school setting. So I'm like, and he's there, like he's also a student.
How old is
I don't
everybody?
know.
What kind of setting? Is it like a university setting?
I guess it's a university, but it's just I was very thrown because it was like it would be like reading one of our books about adults and all of a sudden they're going back to school. Like it just kind of threw me.
Yeah. It'd be one thing if you're like new to being a vampire and you're learning what this means, but
I mean, she is learning
interesting.
about the society, but he's also in school.
Okay, I have follow-up questions, so you'll have to let us know how that goes.
But I like it so far.
Our TBR is getting to be quite
We're
long
so busy.
in an exciting way. We have a lot of great things to come. We finally get the aftermath of Astrid's death as we jump back in.
It's so abrupt the way we get into it, but I don't know how to get into it.
I know.
Other than getting into it.
It's just it's so intense the way this starts today. We're getting the aftermath of Astrid's death sentence in chapter 17. Manon is sharpening Wind Cleaver and basically she's just brooding.
And I didn't get the sense that she is planning what happens next. Like I think in this moment, she's just really hoping to give Astrid a quicker death than the witches usually get. And the fact that it's not planned, like it's not calculated, it just shows how unlike the Iron Teeth Manon is. Like our girl has emotions. She has emotional responses, which is very unwitch-like.
We're learning to figure out what those responses mean. Quick refresh. Manon's grandmother ordered Astrid's execution as punishment for the deaths of witches from Iskra's coven during the attack on Rifthold.
And although she thought about #Free Astrid, that wouldn't mean just betraying her matron and clan, but it'd also be putting the rest of the 13 in danger, the 12, if you will. And it is easy to look at this and be like, how can you still serve your grandmother? But Manon is basically brainwashed. Like, she grew up in a cult. She and Kale, actually, if you think about it, have very similar paths of growing up with all of this propaganda, and they're struggling to shed those beliefs. Like, it would be hard as fuck to completely change your worldview. Like, unless you're that one friend that we have that completely adopts the personality of whomever she's dating at the time, it's really hard to change everything you know.
Well, and in Manon's defense, like, the witches have been kind of raised not to question, you follow orders. So,
Yes.
as much as she is friendly with the 13, nobody's really questioning her either. Like, there's still a hierarchy here. So, there's certain moments where, like, I love to, like, think things through and talk them out with people. That's not Manon hasn't been raised to
Mhm.
act in that way. So, it's a lot to try to understand and work through on your own with things you hadn't considered previously.
And I do wonder, and I don't know how to say this because I love Manon. It is someone actually sent us some synonyms for interesting, but they have such devotion to Manon. And up until this point, she has been drinking the Kool-Aid, or it was really Flavor Aid, but she's been drinking it, and she's been following the obedience, loyalty, whatever. So you're like, what is it about Manon that inspired the 13 and made them so different? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
and we'll get into it as we discuss it, so I don't mean to, like, jump ahead, but they're looking at her like she's their future, and I'm like, "What has she done?"
What is it about her? Like, I love her, and she grows so much after she leaves, but these first 100 years that she's been alive, I just don't really see.
Is the distinction simply because 'cause they're all brutal in their own right, is it simply just that she's not cruel like other witches? Like,
Yeah,
they can tell there's I mean, she is definitely a witch, and she
that she's
behaves like a witch,
capable of
but there's like, is
more.
there something else about her that's different?
Mhm.
Because, yeah, these witches are like, what do they say? To the darkness, like,
Yeah,
they are
I
following
don't feel
her
that way about
completely.
anyone.
I love you all, but
No.
it is a very interesting. While she's sharpening her blade, Manon is also memorizing the words of request, which wouldn't save Astrid, but like you said, it would mean a quick death by Manon's blade, so a mercy,
Mhm.
if you will, versus a slow torture and beheading.
And words of request is a religious thing. Like, I know I've heard it somewhere in my religious trauma. I can't think of where, but I it makes me think of the Hebrew word for prayer, words of request. Or like, it's not prayer is not supposed to be words of request because you shouldn't just be asking
Yeah.
for things.
Yeah, it does. It's ringing a bell, but I also, off the top of my head, can't tell you what it's similar to. Sorrel comes the closest that she ever has to challenging Manon. When she says she wishes Astrid had the chance to see the waste just once, Manon tells her, "We do not wish, we do not hope."
Who are you trying to convince, me or yourself? And Sora points out, like, Astrid is going to her death to keep your secrets, and the 12 sounds fucking stupid. Do something.
Like, come
We've put
on.
all of our hope in you.
Everyone gathers, not in the keep's dungeon, but on a veranda overlooking a drop into a ravine.
The matron does love the drama. Astrid, I guess, I read it as she was going to receive, but I guess she's already received 3 blows. Like 3 blows apiece for Iskra's 4 dead big backs. So a total of 12 blows, I guess, have already been delivered. Like, she has, when they see Astrid, she already looks beat the fuck up.
Yeah, my understanding is that while Manon's like upstairs having her little moment, her matron has approved that Iskra can take whatever vengeance she personally feels necessary, and
There
it's
are
approved.
there are a lot of times in this series where it's kind of when Selena was waiting for Sam, and it's like while something was like when a character is waiting and then
Yeah.
they feel this guilt over having not done anything.
It's like they know the people around them can't be trusted, but there's still moments that I think they didn't think how dark those other people could be
Yeah,
because that's not who they are. So there's a moment where I don't think it even registered with Manon that Astrid could be
right.
hurt further. And clearly, by the look of her, it's way more than just 12 blows. Like something else happened down there. But with pride, Astrid does point out that they had to chain her up before they could beat her.
I love how fucking insane Astrid is. Like, she's always grinning in the most insane times, just with, like, blood, in her mouth. She's just like, "Yeah, but they had to tie me up."
Poor
And they
Astrid.
start forming a line to strike Astrid for some let's keep in mind, this is for some fucking nobody named Zelta. Like, who is Zelta? Nobody cares. And Manon invokes the right of execution, claiming the right to make the only blow.
Man, she had to get that out quick because they were about to start the torture
Yeah, she's like,
party.
"Where's her?"
She's like, "Wait." And for saving her daughter Petra's life during war games, Cressida Blueblood grants the request, much to the displeasure of that dusty Yellowlegs high bitch.
Manon tells Sorrel to turn Astrid so she can see the Dawn one last time. And Astrid does look at Dawn. She looks at her Dawn. She looks at Manon. I think that is so I came up with that on my own.
I
I mean,
think,
maybe that was obvious, but
I mean, looking at it as her Dawn,
I'm just so deep.
it is, but like, I mean, like I was like emotional about it, but I'm like, I feel it. What you're saying, it makes sense. As Manon draws Windcleaver, Astrid asks her cousin to take my body back.
Take my body back.
Sorry. Speaking of Robert Pattinson.
Take my body back.
Sorry to ruin that, guys.
Wait, which one? That was Goblet, right?
Yeah, the Goblet of
Yeah.
Fire. And it's his ghost asking Harry to take my body back. But this did make me cry when I was reading it, though. Astrid asks Manon to take her body to the cabin, the one that she shared with the human man.
And that breaks Manon, and it broke me too reading it. All it would take in this moment for Astrid to save herself would be betraying Manon's secrets. I wouldn't be able to get them out fast enough. But Astrid would never do that. None of the 13 would, because contrary to the witch's brainwashing, there are forces greater than obedience, discipline, and brutality. Manon isn't soulless. She wasn't born without a heart.
This is what we were just referencing. It kind of amazes me. Like, I mean, clearly Astrid also wasn't born without a heart, but what's so different about Manon that the 13 see a different future for them?
Well, what's so different about the 13, like these 13 individuals? Is it just Manon, or would they have always been this way?
Like, what is she inspiring? Well, there's clearly loyalty and there's trust amongst them, but she's clearly something about her has inspired them
It's different.
to put everything on the line for each other. The 13 raised 2 fingers to their brows. This makes me want to choke up. Speaking of being sappy, not to honor the high witch, but a witch queen.
Astrid presses her fingers. What is that? Is that something? Pressing your fingers to your brow?
Honestly,
Hunger Games?
Did we see Hunger Games? Yeah.
Okay.
Like, because it was like 2 fingers, like a sign of like respect or something.
And she tells Manon to bring their people home. Manon raises Windcleaver and brings it down onto her grandmother.
That took a turn. What? Here we go. Her grandmother darts back.
She's so fucking, because I know that she is the witch in her prime. Like Yellowlegs old, Blackbeak middle, and then the others are the pretty ones.
Well, Manon and her coven are always like protecting the matron, and she's never seen her grandmother like train.
Well, I'm still picturing
she trains in
that
private.
Cartoon witch. I know we pictured it for Baba Yellowlegs.
The crone.
Yes.
The like horrific old crone.
And it's like, whoa, she's fast.
Like, no, this witch has been training in secret and she can handle her own. So she lets other people stand in front of her. Like, why not? I'm not gonna lift a hand if I don't have to, but she can protect herself. Move. Her grandmother darts back and the Blackbeak matron's coven lunges, but she stops them. They are settling this shit the ancient way with nails and teeth.
Which is a lot more personal. Like, you can't, it would be different like shooting, not that they have guns. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to really mean it.
I mean, it's like a knife
to take
fight.
someone out. Yeah.
You got to get real close to get your hands in there.
And going into this, you don't know what to expect. Like, Manon has never seen her grandmother fight, which is insane. Like, she's never trained with her. And now she's wondering if that was to hide how fucking good she is. But Manon's only goal is buying time for the 13 to escape. Like, and I hate to keep comparing her to Chaol because it's very different. But this is Chaol standing up to the king, like holding that line. They weren't thinking of themselves or winning. They really just want to buy time for the people they care about.
And maybe this in itself is why the 13 have always looked at Manon.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that she would even consider this instead of selfishly taking care of herself first.
Yeah.
Manon's claws shred her grandmother's shoulder, but the matron slashes a hand across Manon's stomach.
But even worse than that, she labels Manon a witch killer. From this day on, she'll be known as Manon Kinslayer. Kinslayer is always taboo, like in any series that you read, especially A Song of Ice and Fire. they think you actually, like, it curses you. Except in the southern continent, I guess, because that's, like, the first thing that they do when they take over as Coggan is they kill their kin, but
Yeah, that's also
otherwise, it's taboo.
insane. Well, it when you first see it, she goes from witch killer to kinslayer. I'm like, "Whoa, whoa." I mean, like, you just mean, like, all witches because 'Cause we're
Yeah,
all witches together? Like, what do you mean kinslayer? The high bitch taunts Manon, calling her as pathetic as her mother. Whoa, bitch. The mother Manon
that would be such a low blow for me. I'd be
like,
like, "No!"
you have my attention now. The mother that Manon thought died giving birth to her, but who her grandmother actually killed, like, literally ripped her own daughter's throat out.
As her mother was giving birth, she confessed who Manon's father was, a rare Kraken prince. We didn't even know witches could be men up until this point.
Yeah.
So Manon is a kinslayer. She has been hunting down and killing her people. Her people are the Krakens. She's been killing them her entire life. It's like the only thing she enjoyed doing.
I mean, not to take it away from this, but Manon's grandmother literally just said she killed her own daughter, so I'm like, "Okay, kinslayer." But
You are
anyway,
so right. Did everyone not hear that?
just
You're
just
right.
just a moment of like, but it's
You would have been in
okay.
the crowd. First of all, you'd be kind of the nerdy one of the 13 that wears glasses,
Thank you.
but then you'd be like,
Question. They feel like, "You
you'd
need to
have
shut up."
sunscreen on your nose.
I would be the first target. They'd be like, "Shh." Manon's father never stopped looking for her and never stopped loving Manon's mother. That's
Oh,
heartbreaking.
that's like that's the most unrealistic part of a book with wyverns and witches is that a man would just keep trying.
I mean, like, all these things, like, Manon is so unprepared to hear this.
If I'm not in a man's line of sight, they forget about me.
Same girl. So I'm still single. JK, JK. But so the matron killed her father as well. That's awful.
Yeah.
That Kraken the matron made Manon kill in the Farian Gap was looking for Manon for their dead prince's lost child, Rhiannon. She was named for the last Kraken queen, the one who cursed the Iron Teeth, and she was Manon's half sister.
Well, I know that that's probably Rhiannon is probably something from mythology, but I wonder if she was a little bit inspired by Fleetwood Mac. That's like one of my favorite songs of theirs.
I've heard the name Rhiannon associated with witches so many
Yeah, but
times
what
in
is
other
that? I meant to
lore.
look it up. I'll look it up before
It
next week.
reminds me of like the Morrigan though. You know,
Yeah,
Morrigan
like
is like
Celtic.
yeah, so I don't know.
And Manon isn't just a Kraken. Manon is a Kraken queen. But she doesn't have time to process any of this. Like everyone I think can hear. Like everyone listening is kind of like, "What?"
I mean, they're in a very big echoing
Yeah,
space.
but her grandmother goes in for the kill, and Manon has to throw herself over the ledge of this balcony, and she lands on poor Abraxos, who's like, "Mom, your nails!"
I
Because
mean,
she like catches herself with her nails.
like on his neck. But also I'm like, how did you know he would be right there? Like that worked out. The shadows, Edda and Briar, flank her as they race away from Morath with 6 yellow legs from Iskra's coven on their asses.
But they also just heard everything, so they're like, like they really can't say anything right now, but they're kind of side eye.
We have a lot to talk about.
They split up, leading two apiece in opposite directions. Vision blurred, and like literally holding her guts in. Manon and Abraxos dive into a ravine, and one wyvern just dies. And the other manages to bank and chases them through the canyons, ones Manon and Abraxos have flown countless times in training.
To the very end of Braxos, she says, leading the yellow legs bitch toward a black stone wall where at the very last second they pull up.
2 daggers strike where Manon had been seconds before, as does the yellow leg sentinel and her equally thick wyvern.
Her tick wyvern.
Tick. Yeah, not thick, tick.
Manon gets the word oak out before she loses consciousness.
But who gives a shit because we finally get another Live, Laugh, Lorcan chapter.
I was like, where have they been? Where the hell have you been, Loca?
Where the hell have you been, Loca?
It's been 2 days since he and Marion made their deal.
Are we in agreement that Marion was such a dumb fucking choice? Like if Vernon was out there looking for her, Marion's probably going to grab his attention.
Yeah. I guess it was just the first thing she thought of. Like, what else is she going to say?
I mean, not that she can change it now and just be like, actually.
I didn't mean that. Call me something else.
But even though Marion has like a million questions, like, why is Lorcan going to Morath? Why does he keep touching his man necklace? Why does he look... When she talked about Selene and Aelin, he definitely had a face that wasn't, who are you talking about? Like, why was he hunting a lead? Who is his mistress? But instead of asking, she's trying to keep up this act of like, I'm just young, dumb, and in need of cum. Like, I'm just, I'm just a girl.
Wow. Even
Is
with
that not the way you actors are trying to be innocent?
well, no,
Well,
really.
I've seen you at the bars
Thank you.
when we used to go to bars, Victoria.
I had a bar name. Honestly, it's easier to try to say a name in like a loud bar that doesn't start with a vowel. People can't
Yeah.
hear you. But it just became easier. I'm like, we're never going to talk again. I'm Victoria. Just don't bother me. Like, whatever. Even with all these questions and not really knowing him, Alid has slept soundly the last 2 nights with a full stomach thanks to Lorcan's hunting.
And he shared his portion of the food with her. One of my favorite micro tropes. I can't even think of other examples, but when an FMC or MMC sleeps better with the other person when they're near, do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that. I just can't think of who. Or like that they don't have nightmares when the person is sleeping beside them.
Oh, yeah. We do see a lot of that in a lot of stories, though.
I guess kind of Rowan and Aelin
Yeah.
when they were sleeping in the same bed,
Leaving
not
it.
fucking.
I mean, honestly, for Aelin, just about every guy she's dated, like it gives her peace of mind. So there's a moment of that. Leaving the tangle of Oakwald Forest behind, Alid can't remember the last time that she saw sunlight on a meadow or birds or like anything pretty, really.
This poor girl went from locked in a tower to Morath to the forest. And Elite is kind of like our Rapunzel. And we know that SJM loves a fairy tale. Like Elite is Rapunzel, Akatar Beauty and the Beast. Manon is a little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
With the red cape and her grandmother who's actually the wolf, the like staying on the path stuff. We just talked about
A Cage of
A
Crimson.
Cage of Crimson for our book review this week. And that's Little Red Riding Hood. And so we just like had this thought of like kind of Manon.
Yeah.
Even though the story itself starts very Cinderella, only Aelin doesn't actually end up with Dorian, sadly.
No.
I'd still love to like explore that if there's fanfic out there.
Before they attempt to cross the Acanthus River, it's time for a little makeover montage.
We love a montage.
I also love how much Lorcan like listens to Alid's recommendations. I was like,
he turns into like a little softie. Like he's a cinnamon roll only around her.
Yeah, but like, cause like he's this big badass, and she's making recommendations, and he actually is like, okay, adjust your face, check those shoulders, roll it out. Like Alid tells Lorcan to hide his weapons and put that hair in a pony.
I like to imagine that it's a side pony.
Also, unbutton that jacket,
revealing his broad muscled chest, and it has like the right amount of chest hair. Because like too much, not a fan. But another one of my dated references is Xena, the TV show Xena Warrior Princess. The guy who played Ares had like the best chest hair. It's just like very manly. But like you said, that Lorcan lets Elide get away with so much already. Like imagine anyone else trying to give Lorcan a makeover.
Just trying to give him any tips at all. And
he probably literally killed him.
I mean, yeah, he'd probably be like, oh, okay. Alid pops those big boobs out and styles her hair into a knot on top of her head.
A married woman's hairstyle, which is my hairstyle without the marriage part. But I looked it up, it's historically accurate because I thought it was, but married women in medieval Europe often wore their hair in braids, like beneath a head covering, and while single women had their loose, slutty hair.
They're still trying to catch a man. Lorcan's like, yeah, your tits are bigger, but what will that do? Like, thank you for noticing.
What? It will distract men like it did you just now.
You noticed.
Hopefully it's long enough to keep them from asking questions. Elide will use her body to her advantage, but it does mentally take her back to those men touching her in the cell, the ones that were going to take her down to the Vogue Prince. And later when we switch to Lorcan's POV, he's more perceptive than you'd give him credit for, like not just with war stuff or like, he's perceptive like with her emotions.
I mean, he's 500. I hope he's learned to pay attention.
Yeah,
but
true.
I hear what you're saying.
The bar is in hell. But it's obvious, there's obviously trauma. He's not quite to the like, who did this to you stage, but it bothers him.
Yeah. Elide and Lorcan, now walking side by side, approach the stone bridge crowded with wagons and carts and guarded by 24 guards in Otterlanian colors.
Just as Elide is panicking about her recognizable limp, the one that the Ilkin knew about, Lorcan uses his magic to brace her ankle and calf with wind. I can't actually picture, like, would people around you not notice that hard of a wind? Is it that concentrated? Is it coming from the ground? I just don't.
I'm just envisioning, like, air pressure.
I know, but
Like, so you
where's it
can't
coming
see it.
from? Would people not feel?
I don't know, he can
Be
manifest
like,
his magic in so many unexplained ways. I feel
I
like
know.
it's not like real wind, it's like manifested magic somehow.
But she has to fight the urge to react to walking like, she's walking straight for the first time since she was a child, and she assumes that it's only gonna last until they cross the bridge, but it is like she's able to walk straight.
It's like she doesn't know how to, like how do you not freak out? Like, you're finally not in pain, you can handle this,
Mhm.
like, she has to, like, show no reaction. Too nervous to try outright bribing someone, they go to a tavern where an older couple, probably bullied by Aneth, just so happens to be leaving their table that's next to a group of 8 discussing how they're going to afford to cross the bridge.
Elide takes Lorcan's hand, her husband, not her brother's hand, and I think that's smarter because men will fuck with an unmarried woman a lot more. Even if their brother is around,
It's not the same
that's
kind of
not gonna
threat.
stop people. And usually this is when the girl would feel the guy's calloused hands, but here Lorcan feels Elide's calluses scraping against his own, like calluses from over a decade in hard labor.
He'd made all kinds of assumptions about her,
Yes.
and I think he's having a moment of like, "That's
Yeah,
unexpected."
you can't fake that.
Channeling Astrid, of all people, Elide asks the group
So
if
she looks fucking insane.
well, I'm hoping it means that she's just, like, confident and, like,
Yes.
perky. 'Cause Astrid, like, doesn't give 2 fucks anymore. She's
Mhm.
like, "Alright." Elite asks the group if there's some sort of performing troupe, which they are, and offers to chip in on the bridge fee if she and her husband can join.
This is where I would be fucked because 'cause they'd be like, "Oh, what's your talent?" Don't have one. But she says that she is a fortune teller and Lorcan is an expert sword swallower.
Swallower?
He's a sword thrower. But he made bank in their last troupe, Baba Yellowlegs, Carnival of Mirrors. Elite is so fucking smart and perceptive. Like, Baba traveled with a carnival, mysteriously died, aka we know was killed by Aelin, but it explains why they would be out of work and it gives them like street cred, like carnival cred.
Yeah.
They have been invited to the Glass Castle, like they were clearly a famous and talented carnival.
I mean, I'm amazed with how quickly she can come up with something on the
Yes.
spot. Like, you ask me a question here, and I'm like, like, I just blank.
Mm,
And she's like, for their livelihood, coming up with things, like, real
yeah.
quick. Lorca gets in on the role play, adding his family lives on the western side of the White Fang Mountains, where some weird shit is happening.
The leader, Molly, is not convinced until Elide pulls out a silver coin, which is funny because she just told Lorcan that she didn't have any money. But they go to the back of the line where Molly finds them and hires them for a temporary stint. And I feel like we as a fandom don't appreciate this truly insane storyline enough. Like this dark and broody, powerful demi-fae male with the power of death just joined Barnum and Bailey with a girl who can't read who's going to read
That is
fortunes.
really funny.
It the whole carnival thing always makes me think of Freak Show, American
Yeah.
Horror Story. I feel like that was such an underrated season of American Horror Story.
It was pretty horrific.
I have a side tangent.
Okay, please do.
Do you remember Lobster Hands?
Yes.
It was Evan Peters.
Mhm.
That's based on a real person.
Okay.
So it's based on Grady Stiles, aka Lobster Boy, and he started the freak show circuit with his father, who also had a genetic condition that I can't pronounce, when he was 7 years old. So Grady becomes this huge alcoholic. He's an abusive asshole. Grady's first wife, Mary, left him to marry a little person who was billed as the smallest man in the world.
Wow.
Okay, so then in 1978, Grady shoots and kills his oldest daughter's fiance on the eve of their wedding because he didn't like the guy.
I mean, good grief.
He only gets house arrest. He remarries Mary, and then Mary and her son hired a 17-year-old sideshow performer to kill Grady. And he was such an asshole, only 10 people came to the funeral and he had no pallbearers.
This is really insane.
Isn't that insane?
So much all at once. Like, wow. Okay, freak show. Switching to Lorcan's POV, he and Marion follow the troop of their. Like, this is a perfect opportunity for her to give a different name. If she
Yes.
was like a moment of
And
panic,
he would have to roll with it, even if it's just Mary.
it just didn't even occur to her, yeah, that Marion, she should change that out. But he and Marion follow the troop to their 2 shitty yellow painted wagons pulled by 4 horses. One is driven by Molly, whose passenger princess is a raven haired beauty that Lorcan is totally not checking out because he is a fake married man.
Lorcan has gone from a 500-year-old Hellas blessed demi-fae warrior to a married human carnival worker up to his eyeballs in cum because he's not fucking his pretend wife and he's not fucking anybody else.
Yet.
Yet.
I mean, not that Marion is bad on the eyes. I thought it was really interesting that this is all pointed out. I was like, is this
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to admit that you want Marion instead? Like, why did he even have a moment thinking about that other woman?
It actually pisses me off, which is insane. Like, I'm an insane person, but I like put myself.
I get jealous.
I get
You're mine.
so
We're having a moment here.
jealous.
Get out of
Yes,
here.
me too.
We're talking
How
about
fucking dare you? I'm standing right here.
the polyamorous relationships. I'm like, but I'm over here.
Well, especially if they're like what I'm not, like if they're tall and they have big boobs and stuff, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, but like just the fact that he's noticing this woman, I'm sure she's not prettier than I was gonna say Marion, than a lead, but just the fact that he has this moment, I'm like, are you trying to lie to yourself here?
Yeah.
Because you do notice that Marion is not bad on the eyes with that sweet face and sinful curves.
Lorcan and Elide join 5 others in the back of a wagon, including Nick, the bearded man, who ask about their belongings because they just showed up with nothing. And
No backstory.
Elide makes up a story about Lorcan losing all their shit crossing a river. Like, I think you can look at Lorcan and be like, this guy's never bumbled. Like, he's not fumbling things, but
No.
okay. And every time that Elide puts her hand on Lorcan's knee, just like a couple having a casual conversation, he has to stop himself from cringing because he's just not used to casual affection. He's really not used to any sort of affection. Like, this man can kill, like he can level a city without a second thought, but a woman touching his knee makes him uncomfortable. There's a lot to unpack here with that.
Well, he doesn't really do relationships, so he's probably like, what? Okay.
Well, it's the mask that they put on. Like, it leads staged femininity, and Lorcan's he's being ordinary and he's becoming like a doting husband. It forces them to confront parts of themselves. Like, it leads trauma at being objectified. Lorcan's longing for intimacy. Like, they put on these masks that actually reveal more than they conceal.
Wow, that was deep.
And
I mean that not like disrespectfully, like
with
right.
respect.
Yeah, like okay.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just really interesting. Like, the things that they have to front about are things that deep down they're actually struggling with.
Yeah. But the way it all comes to the surface and it's like they have to get through it, so they can't really have a moment to like freak out over any of it. Lorcan tells Nick that he wanted a better life for his wife than the Fangs, and when Nick points out a life on the road isn't much better, Elide counters, what more could I ask than to live a life unchecked by cages?
She wants to experience shit. She wants to see shit. Like, she wants to see everything. And Nick warns her not to wander too far, not with what's happening in Morath or what happened in Rifthold. And this is the first that Lorcan and Elide are hearing about the attack on the city and the unknown fate of Dorian.
When Nick brings up Aelin, Elide asks what he knows.
She's beautiful as sin, colder than ice. Some say a tyrant, a coward, a whore. Excuse me? She's not even having sex with any of these people.
Damn it.
A God's blessed, God's damned, but rumor is she has 2 Fae princes, 2 warrior princes, and a shapeshifter, which Lorcan is like, yeah, I can confirm the shapeshifter. She threw up on me twice.
Which is actually really funny that Lorcan has that. Like, yeah
he's like, yeah,
sure
that happened.
The guards line everyone up outside the wagon for inspection and bribery.
And Lorcan keeps his arms across her waist, and we love a fictional possessive man.
I mean, like, this whole point that Elide is like, you're going to be my husband, not my brother. Like, these guards prove why, just with their creepiness, like, shortly after her making that decision. That dark-haired beauty must have been in the same improv class as Elide and Lysandra, though, because she avoids the men's attention and cautions Elide not to look the men in the eyes.
And again, he's calling her dark-haired beauty like, hello, your wife and I are standing right here. How fucking dare you?
Lorcan feels Elide shaking, not from fear, but anger. He calls her an idealist, someone who believes the world could be better.
And he cannot relate to that. Like, Lorcan believes there's no such thing as a better world or like a happy end. Because there are no endings. And that's always stood out to me because, like, does he just mean because he's immortal there's no endings?
I guess probably. Like, I mean, things will go on forever and ever, and like relationships just can't last that long, I guess.
Well, the more we get to know Lorcan and the rest of the cadre, the more obvious it is how fucking toxic and abusive the Maeve situation was and is. And I think they're realizing it too. Like, sometimes it takes getting out of the relationship to look back and be like, fuck.
You have to see an example of something totally different sometimes to
Which
realize,
he's
like,
seeing with the lead, yeah.
yeah, oh, there were. I didn't even know that was an option. Like, I didn't even
Mhm.
recognize this was toxic until I see something better or different.
And I have to imagine some of Lorcan's devotion is him gaslighting himself because it's not like he can get rid of her because of the blood oath. So he's delusional to save his own sanity. Like he has convinced himself that he loves her and that she's not that bad because the alternative is he's chained for the rest of his really long life to a monster.
Yeah.
Really, the only one who clocked May from the beginning was Fenris, and I cannot wait. We finally get to talk about Fenris next. Like, we briefly met him in Heir of Fire, but he's one of my favorite characters.
God,
But
I
he's
love
really the
Fenris.
only one that went into this being like, "Yeah, she fucking sucks."
Yeah, I love Fenris. In Tower of Dawn, chapter 13, Irene has just finished a healing sesh with Kaol. She pushed her magic against the darkness, the void inside him, but it only seemed to laugh at
That's
her.
so embarrassing. Only when she pulled back did that dark wall seem to transform into something, showing her images like she was looking through someone's eyes, but not through Chaol's eyes. It showed her Morath, the fortress, and the army. I we're lucky that this whole thing that's inside of Chaol is not corrupting him. Like it's affecting him. Like obviously he can't walk. But imagine it's like the One Ring in Lord of the Rings and it like turned him into evil Chaol. Like it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not influencing him in that way.
It's very weird because it's like a shell, like a memory of whatever the evil magic was, but it also is still sentient. So
This it honestly doesn't make sense to me. I
it's still
don't.
like latching on and like it's like a piece of that magic is truly in him because
It's like a Horcrux.
it's reacting for itself. Yeah, like it's wild. It's scary. Irene is at least starting to see the wisdom of delaying her return home. I was like, what did I just say?
No, I like it.
Irene is seeing
Don't bring me here anymore. I'll read.
she's seeing the wisdom of delaying her return home.
Home.
The necessity of learning to heal wounds like Chaos, because what if what she just saw is what she's going to have to go up against?
And both Kale and Irene are exhausted. Kale from the pain, like he's screaming around this bit in his mouth. And well, just he's physically exhausted, but that whole time the darkness has been showing him his worst memories. And Irene was hurling her magic over and over and over again at that dark wall for 5 hours.
That sounds insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys are masochists. That's insane.
Well, is there not burnout?
Well, for Irene, there is, but
Yeah.
Kale, I guess, is just like, I deserve this. And he's so lost in the emotional pain
Yeah.
that I don't think he's registered anymore. Kale asks Kaja for tea.
And you know, Kaja was outside for 5 hours being like, what the fuck is happening?
I guess it's just what they do. Kale lifts the cup to Irene's mouth, and she's internally like, okay, he's not a total monster, but this is way too intimate.
It's an opportunity to take care of someone, which Kale thinks that he can't do from the chair, but deep down, like, Kale likes to take care of people. His love language is acts of service. And Irene is seeing that, or she's at least starting to see who Kale really is. But he is still the hand of the king. Like, he is still the former captain of the guard. So she's not quite ready to see him as anything else.
Irene, yeah, she's not ready to let go of that yet, which Kale picks up on. So you can stomach helping me, but I can't do anything that doesn't fit who you think I am. That goes outside of the box that you put me in.
Kale wants her to stay for dinner, and this was great. The undershorts, the horse role play. What is that where they are riding fake horses?
Oh, a hobby horse?
Yes. Hobby horse was fun, but dining with a man who worked for the King of Otterlin is just too far for Irene.
I mean, even if it wasn't like a dislike for that sake, it is intimate. It's more than me like working together. Like, it's changing the dynamics of what we have right now.
Wasn't Hobby Horse just in Nashville?
Yeah, they were like outside one of the bars
gone.
having a competition. Like, what?
Part of me wants to cringe, and then part of me is like, you know what? Hell yeah.
It's the way
they have found something that they love doing, and they are having fun.
It's the way they're so into it. Like, I don't even know how to
I would love
that.
to go and like cheer. And be like, yeah.
As long as we're all like laughing and enjoying ourselves,
yes,
I guess.
But not laughing at them, just being like, this is fun.
Yeah, because it's wild how it's really picked up. There's also tonight's vigil for the healer who was killed that Irene needs to attend, but tomorrow's the self-defense class that she asked him to help with.
Nezrin returns and she tells Kale about her convo that she had with Sartak when they were up in the air on his rook.
Even if it pains him to send her out alone, Kale tells Nezrin to start hunting for the Vogue, undoubtedly already in Antica.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more obvious.
Can't really ignore it.
You can't ignore it. Like there was literally a husk. Before she goes, Nezrin and Kaja wheel Kale into his room and onto the bed. It hasn't really talked about how Kale goes to the bathroom.
Yeah, follow-up questions.
For like him to be so touchy about everything, it's weird that there hasn't been a moment of him resenting.
Number one, do they have actual toilets? So
I don't know.
Maybe he could sit on a toilet.
Did they have? She had running water in Rifthold in her apartment, didn't she?
Yeah.
But does that mean she had a flushing toilet? Because where would they have sewers?
Okay, let's just assume something's working out there.
Interesting. But so every time you have to go to the bathroom, is Kaja having to pull you onto the toilet?
I mean, he can lift himself in and out of the chair. So assuming there's an actual toilet, I guess he's taking care of that himself.
But anyway, Nezrin and Kaja wheel Kale into his room and onto the bed, and it's in contrast to Irene, who is always pushing him to do shit himself. But also he lets them. There's a middle ground between snapping at Nezrin when she tries to help and being completely helpless. Imagine if Kale at some point just said, hey, to Nezrin, hey, I see and I appreciate you wanting to help me. I'm really trying to keep some independence. So moving forward, I'm going to ask for help when I need it. If he just said that instead of being such a little bitch about it.
I appreciate that this is in here, but I don't think it's accurate context because Kale's getting frustrated that they're helping him to bed, but he's so exhausted.
But he's letting them.
No, I don't think he can't move himself. He's so exhausted from the healing. So it's not even letting, he can't get himself out of the chair. So they have to, or else you're sleeping in the chair.
Yeah.
Which is, I think is weird because in general, Kaja lets him move around and do things for himself, especially after he snapped at her.
It's really more Nezrin that he.
It's just that moment. It's the self-pity he has.
Yes.
They're having to help me. I'm they're helping you because you're exhausted. It's okay to have them help sometimes.
That's a good point, yeah.
They're not trying to belittle you. I just had a moment where I was like, Kale,
I get angry on Nezrin's behalf because it's really not fair.
Yeah, I know. I have a hard time because each time that Kale has a little moment, I'm like, that's probably how I would react if I was Nezrin. So I don't think I understand your.
But then I also understand he's not in a good place. But
yeah, he is definitely not.
Hurt people.
After dinner, as Nezrin is leaving the palace, she sees the Grand Empress still in mourning for her youngest daughter.
Under the full moon, Nezrin walks through the city and passes its countless temples for the 36 gods worshipped in Antica.
It's kind of amazing that they all there live there peacefully and not one god is more important than the others. She reaches the Torres, now sealed gates, and observes the guards, both royal and Torre. Then hears Sartak ask where they opened last night. It's the answer that no guard wants to yield.
Even if she didn't mention it during their ride, Sartak knows Nezrin has some idea of what attacked the healer. She doesn't come out and say Vogue, but she confirms if the attack was made by whom she suspects, it's fucking bad news.
It's impressive how much Sartak can already read Nezrin because she is she keeps things
closed off.
Yes, she keeps things to herself. She doesn't share all of her thoughts, and he's already picking up on really small tells from her.
You're right.
Sartak heard reports of beasts in Otterlin, beasts from their death goddess Vanth's darkest dreams.
And Vanth is a chthonic female in ancient Italian mythology, existed before the Romans took over. And she is associated with death and the journey of the deceased to the underworld. But also, there's a moon named Vanth, and that is a moon of the dwarf planet Orcus. Which was named for one of the Roman gods of the underworld, a punisher of the condemned. But I thought that was a fun little.
Didn't we also mention that Orcus is another name for Apollyon?
Yes.
Didn't we talk about that last week?
And one of the Vogue kings.
I mean, that's so much right there. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Vanth's presence in the city predates even Silba's healers.
I think that that's important because it's Vanth predated the Romans.
Yeah, it's a very old god, and
yeah.
That's keeping in line with our world. The death goddess worshippers are a secretive group that even the Kagan fears and respects.
When Nezrin tells Sartak he might want to watch his mother wandering around alone, She shares her personal history with grief, and I don't think she has ever told Kale about the death of her mother, which that she sounds like she died from breast cancer, which could have been cured by magic wielders had they not been murdered and banished. But already we're seeing Nezrin open up to this man, like, who's barely Sartak, who's barely more than a stranger. She's opening up more to him than she ever did with Kale. And it's really the same with Kale and Irene. We're going to see that later, him opening up to her.
Well, and no disrespect to either Kale or Nesrin, but neither one of them asked each other
No,
questions.
you're right.
I mean,
She didn't open up, but he didn't ask.
well, Nesrin didn't ask about him either. You know, she didn't ask him for more detailed things, like more personal things. So, like, neither one of them have set that groundwork for each other.
Yeah.
So, like, it just doesn't really develop. When Sartak asks where her family is now, she says she doesn't know anything other than they got out of Rifthold. Sartak promises to discreetly send word to his spies to keep an eye out for the Fleek family and to aid them as they pass through.
And he doesn't have to do that. Like, he is a
No.
prince.
That is so nice to take an interest in my life.
Sartak presses for information about what they now face, what's now in Antica. And she does share some tips like, hey, if you see a black ring or collar, do not put it on. Beheading is the only thing that keeps these things down. And don't try saving enslaved people, which, I mean, Dorian was okay, but they seem very, like, adamant about you can't save people.
There was a lot of work to save Dorian, though.
Yes.
The prince actually heard stories of similar horrors when he was younger among the Rook Riders.
Which is interesting. But back to the attack on the healer, Nezrin asks if there are canals beneath or sewers like in Rifthold. And he doesn't know, but he lifts an ancient grate and tells her it would be his honor to accompany her in discovering one. And it's very like Sam and Selena in the sewers. Like, we love a first date in the sewers. But later, when we're in Chaos POV, we do learn that they don't find any obvious signs of the Vogue or sewers that connect to the Torre.
It's a different type of sewer system, it sounds like, than what's set up in Rifthold.
I'm sure it's way better. Everything here is so much better.
It seems like it's more developed and cleaner.
Yeah.
An exhausted Irene crawls back to her room at the top of the Torre.
Can you imagine having to, every night, there's not even an elevator, you have to go up those stairs?
No, like, one, I'm not fit for this kind of thing. But two, if you work really hard, like when they expend their magic, you're going to be exhausted and you want me to climb to the top?
With no air.
Are you guys crazy? I will pass out halfway up.
I'll be Nesta. Remember at some point she just kind of gives up and lays on the steps?
Oh my gosh. That'd be one of those things like my legs, my hips, my knees, I'd be wanting to like sit and scoot down.
You know what
like
we
when
never
I come back
talk
down.
about?
What?
When Nesta was falling down the stairs and stops herself and leaves like gouges.
Oh, I've seen things
Does
like that
she
recently.
have iron claws?
Yeah, what just happened here?
Was someone iron teeth?
What could possibly have gouged into stone without
Exactly. But she's crawling up there after the candlelight vigil for that murdered healer.
Yeah.
And like you waking up surrounded by surrounded by Taco Bell wrappers on my old roommate's cartoon red couch.
Thank you.
Irene falls asleep with her fork on her chest and wakes late for the self-defense lesson. I used to come to, like, I lived with this girl. She was such a slut, like, with respect. She had a different guy over every single night, and that was her prerogative.
You had a weird setup, though, where you shared a bathroom with her, so, like, you don't need strange men in your bathroom.
There were a lot of men in that shower. Didn't love it. But she had this, like, giant red couch that literally looked like it belonged in a cartoon. And you would stay the night.
You had the closest apartment, like, when we went out. So, like, we would end up at Taco Bell and I on your couch.
So it would be, like, you, cheesy Fiesta potatoes, and then just, like, wrappers everywhere. And I'd go down there and you were like, oh.
What was that weird TV station that was always on?
It was called Cool TV. We didn't have
There was no actual cable. Cool TV would be bouncing around in the background. It was just weird.
We had one VHS of that movie. Oh, what was it?
Something in the Nile. Wait.
Yes.
It's a really old Michael Douglas movie.
With Catherine, oh my God, Kathleen Turner.
Yes.
And it was the only movie we had. I don't even know if that's like from the 80s or 90s.
I think it's definitely 80s.
And then I have not seen Cool TV before, after, and I'm not sure it was real.
There's something weird at your house.
It was so fucking weird.
Talk about waking up in a weird like acid dream. You're like, random Cool TV is on. There's food wrappers around me. I'm like, what?
On a red couch.
How did I get here? Can I go home? Well, that's exciting. Sorry, Irene. I do understand the whole waking up when, like, food has fallen on your chest and you're like, "Damn it. I
Fuck.
didn't mean to fall asleep
And
just
she
then."
only has, like, 4 dresses total, so
But what am I gonna do? I'm late. I got places to be. So she sprints to the palace courtyard where Kale is pushing himself onto the horse, and it's a specially made saddle that'll help, but he does need the help of a few guards too.
and of course he couldn't just use the ramp, but the man does have amazing muscle control.
Heyo.
And he does have a point that battlefields aren't ADA friendly. He's gonna have to learn how to get on and off that horse, but this is really the first time that Kale is speaking of a future where he's still in the chair.
I
You
feel
know
like
what I'm saying?
he also just couldn't bring himself to ask for help
Yes.
unnecessarily from the guards.
But it's kind of like
But yeah, he does like, like at some point, if this doesn't go through, he is accepting this could be a
yeah.
new reality.
This is so stupid. But whenever I was dyeing my hair blonde for a long time,
Uh-huh.
when I went back to like my actual color, I stopped bleaching it. In my dreams for a long time, I still had blonde hair.
Well, that's who you knew yourself as for
It's
a
like
long
it took
time.
a while for my brain to catch up, but now he's like picturing this future where he might actually be in the chair and he's like wanting to make adjustments for that future.
Yeah, or just like to have that independence as much as possible.
Because me dyeing my hair blonde is very similar to the journey of someone.
It's the not seeing yourself as you are now,
Yes.
yet. He buckles the straps of the brace, which replace where his thighs would have squeezed to keep him steady.
And you know what I forgot to mention last week? Right after we learn that Kaol's thighs are starting to atrophy, there's this moment where Sartak's thick and strong thighs brace Nezrin when they're riding Kadara.
Yeah.
It's just like an interesting, I don't know,
To go from
parallel.
one that's changing to one that's strong and sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
the contrast.
One of my favorite early Game of Thrones moments is when Tyrion says, with the right horse and saddle, even a cripple can ride. And Bran's like, I'm not a cripple. And Tyrion's like, well, I'm not a dwarf. My father will rejoice to hear it. And he had also said something similar to Jon about like, because Jon was a bastard, like, never forget what you are because the rest of the world won't, like,
Yeah.
to wear it like an armor. And there's something really empowering about owning your situation and figuring out how to work with it instead of against it.
I love that though, because wearing it like an armor, but nobody can use it against you. Like, there's no
Yeah.
secret. This is the truth. Like, this is how it is.
Mhm.
What are we going to do with it? Irene greets one of the guards, Shin, who brings her a horse because if Kale is riding, so is she.
And she hikes up her skirt, revealing some sexy pale leg. But she is thinking, I've seen far more revealed in this very courtyard. Like, what is happening in this courtyard?
Well, and I don't know enough about what's like acceptable clothing standards back on Kale's continent, but I'm like, you know, I'm assuming women didn't usually show off their legs past an ankle. So,
Yeah.
like, the fact that these thighs are exposed, like, even though you might
Well,
see more in the area because it's so hot and it's different in Antica, I'm like, wow, girl, she's putting it all out there.
well, and the guards are very respectful, but he does look like as they're riding up to the Torre, he's looking people down, like, don't you look at her. And she catches Kale looking at her leg, and he's like, you have a good seat. And
That
I
feels
thought that,
sexy.
well, I thought that meant you have a good ass, but it's an equestrian term that means good balance, which she does not have.
I mean, but that also means he's watching how her hips are moving on that horse.
Yeah.
She's got a good seat. She is not going to fall. As they rise, Kale thinks it's not walking again, but it's better than the chair.
Even more than the loss of literal movement, it's the loss of independence for Kale. Like, this gives him a little bit of independence back, and he can go back to looking down on people, which is his favorite.
Well, and I think Kale used to love riding, so it must be nice for him
Yeah.
that more things are available to him than he thought would be. As they ride to the Torre, it's Kale who's giving tips to Irene as she sways and slides on her saddle. What about that good seat? Hold on.
He gets to look down on people and he gets to mansplain. Like, it's a perfect day for Kale if the chapter ended here.
Gosh, where this goes.
Not
so
great.
cringy. Kale does something shocking. He asks Irene about herself. So unusual for Kale. She doesn't know if her ancestors can be traced back to the Torre like her family name of Towers suggests.
And the fake wedding band does work, although she doesn't need it as much here versus that nightmare of a continent that she's from. And it reminds Kale of a moment from Crown of Midnight when Aelin went to a ball with Archer. This feels like a lifetime ago. Aelin went to a ball with Archer, and there was that whole rebel storyline. and she sneaks into an office and is cut with a blade poisoned by Gloriella. She manages to kill the guy, covering herself in blood in the process, and she barely makes it to the safest place she can think of, Kale's room, before she's paralyzed. What I don't understand is why Kale thinks of that in this moment. Like, what about that is he reminded of in this specific situation?
I think just that women are taken
Aren't safe?
advantage of so quickly and easily. Like, this guy was planning to paralyze her,
Yeah.
and, like, women have to always be watching their backs. I mean, to be fair, she was breaking into his office, and there was nothing about that that wasn't a red flag to him,
Mhm.
but I guess just for Kale's first thought is that, like, these men are predators
Yeah.
all around.
That's so true.
At least part of the reason Irene has a lot less to fear here is the Coggin holds everybody accountable, from servants to princes.
There is no buying your way out of punishment, unlike in Otterlin, where Kale was often ordered to look the other way when nobility committed a crime. But Dorian is different. In fact, Dorian has studied the Coggin. He admires him.
We just need Dorian to be standing up for that. We're
Yeah,
not doing that
Dorian is
here.
currently on the run, but
You know what? For future, love this idea.
we don't get any Dorian in this part either.
I know. It's the
There we
way,
we have so many different POVs and storylines right now.
which is why I like that we're doing the tandem read, like, all just
Mhm.
side tangent, because we had, like, I think it's been like a week or 2 since we talked, at least 2 weeks since we talked about Elide and Lorcan.
Yeah,
So it's nice. We're like, okay, we also have these people. Like, there's too many people to keep up with. But by doing a tandem read, everybody's getting a moment that we're checking in
right.
on
And
them.
we don't have fatigue of, like, too much anyone like Kale.
Yeah. Or just
I
like
mean, not him
too
specifically,
much
but,
of
like, too
one
much of anyone.
storyline. When Irene asks if he thinks the Coggin will help them, Kale simply says he fucking hopes
I
so.
fucking
And he
hope
leaves
so.
out the absolutely abysmal state of their armies.
And their finances. She tries to get him to talk about what happened, what that darkness is feeding on inside him, but he still doesn't see the connection between his emotional and physical trauma. Like, he's like, what does that have to do with anything?
We're on our way to talk to a bunch of little girls. Like, I don't need to be talking about my trauma right now and get lost in the middle of that. Like, this is not the time for this
That's
conversation,
actually a good point.
even if Kale was ready. They reach the courtyard where 24 women, from barely older than children to elderly, are already waiting.
Haviza is there with her face that has never held any beauty. Like, okay.
I know,
Why did that hurt my feelings?
why does he why is that relevant to, like, describing her look?
It's like everyone he meets, he's like, "Oh, and this person was never beautiful." Uh,
Like, maybe he's trying to say there's something still striking about her face, but
even
it's,
I
I
guess?
don't know, like,
I hate it
don't describe me like
because
that.
'cause I'm like, what
I
are
don't wanna
people
know.
describing me as in their inner dialogues?
Well, it's not like I aspire to be beautiful and that's all I've got, but, like, to point that out, but I mean, Aelin had the same, like, he's
He's not exceedingly
exceedingly handsome,
it's so
so
interesting how when we first met Kale, he was not exceedingly handsome, and now he's rolling up to these girls and the women, and they're, like, swooning.
I mean, it's just a different environment, and also, like, we met Kale when he was all, like, extra
Mall
grumpy around
cop.
Dorian. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, like, he's having a moment to relax and be himself a little bit more here, so maybe that helps. I don't know, but also just everybody has different levels
Different
of
taste.
attraction.
It's the way that you like soccer players and I like rugby players.
It's like a different aesthetic.
Mhm.
As the girls and women swoon over Kale, he's having a panic attack about dismounting the horse in front of everybody, so let's make it worse.
I hate everything about this, like, I I haven't done a lot of Tower of Dawn rereads, to be honest, but when I do, I skip over this
Yeah.
because it's honestly so unexpected because up until this point, Irene has been so cognizant of her wording and actions. But she just, I guess, slips into teaching mode in front of the students, but she's just been very aware and sensitive up until this
I
point.
mean, literally, I think it was last week that we pointed out how Irene adjusts the way that she phrases things in order to save Chaos and Pride. But
Yeah.
instead of saying, I'll help you, she's like, I'll monitor, or like, there's different ways she says things to help save his pride. And then this is so
This
brutally,
is
like,
the
in your
opposite.
face offensive to me. Like, I'm not somebody that ever expects to be picked up. So if I'm looking at you for help, I'm already uncomfortable because I'm like, I'm not a small girl. Who's going to help me out of this? And she has these, like, tiny girls run up. Like,
It's actually
what?
crazy, yeah.
She turns Kale into a lesson, and I can understand from one perspective how she's doing that, but,
Mhm.
like, for somebody that you have literally just noticed is super prideful, it feels like that should have been a consideration. She asks for volunteers from these literal girls, like small, tiny girls to help Kale off this horse and into his chair.
But then she doesn't even give them any sort of instruction, so they're just tugging at him until he almost lands face first, and that is a tall height to fall onto your face.
Everything about that is so humiliating because he has no control over adjusting or helping, and he doesn't even
Mhm.
know how to give them instruction because he doesn't know what they're doing because there's just
I would be
on him.
sweating so much.
I yeah, I would be having a hard time not snapping or raising my voice or,
Yeah.
like, saying
Well, I think he
something.
was very close to it.
There's a couple moments back to back that he's like, "Just get away from me."
Yeah.
Hafiza interrupts the girls arranging his feet, like, that moment on the chair, like, she's like, "We need to give him some breathing room before he loses it," which was just about to be Chaos 13th
That was
reason.
just about it.
I mean, it was on the edge there, and she explains that Irene's instincts are to teach.
It is a rare like you were saying, a rare opportunity to train for patients with similar injuries because they can't all go out to the steps right away. So this is very like a unique situation where they can go ahead and train for what they're going to face with the injuries that a lot of horse riders have. But it's still incredibly insensitive. Like he's a person with feelings, he's not a cadaver, which side tangent.
Okay.
Did you know that when H. Holmes was a kid, his classmates locked him in a room with a skeleton? And that's where he says that his curiosity about anatomy came from.
I did not, and I think that's reaching, but, like, okay.
I mean, that's what he said. I'm
Yeah.
not reaching,
He
he's
really went to some
reaching.
extremes with that. He's like, "Yeah, that's what got me interested." I'm like, "That's a leap." Okay, buddy. Kale ignores Irene's look of worry once she finally catches on that something is wrong.
It takes her a while,
And even then, she's like, got no idea. And after they demonstrate what they've learned in their first 2 lessons this quarter,
which really mirrors what Aelin taught Irene in that alley in Inish. Like
or
it's the exact lessons that she taught her.
yeah, and poor Kale, I mean, I would still be, like, lost in my, like, feelings, like, and it would have me very flustered, and he's gotta pivot and just, like
He's has a lot of feelings to be lost in because it's not just like I almost fell face first. It's also a lot of trauma that's coming up that's tied to training.
just even being near the other guards, like, after
Yeah.
everything that happened with Ress
He
and
can't even
Verlo,
look at him.
it's a lot all at once for Kale. Kale has to push down the memories of those guards that he trained, the ones that ended up hanging from the castle gates. A lot of good my training did them.
The day he flung his sword into the Avery was the day that he cast off everything he'd ever been as captain of the guard. And he was drowning long before he ever sat in that chair. Like, he's not even sure that he tried to swim since leaving Dorian alone in that room with his father. So, returning to training and stepping back into this old role, like stepping back into Chaos, it's brutal. But he does push through and he instructs the girls in the art of flipping men onto their big backs.
Well, he also just has a moment like, "What could I possibly do from a chair?" And it's like, you can instruct. You're very familiar with
Exactly.
how these instead of showing them, talk them through it, and as much as he's frustrated or stressed out, I think it's really good for him to have this opportunity to
Mhm.
show that he can still be just as effective even if he's in the chair. He even smiles at the girls and the guards who
Ooh,
are
they're
flipped
fanning
over and
themselves like,
I mean, he's from the outside, he's containing a lot of his anger, like, he's
mhm.
being a good sport, it's not their fault that all this has been put on him.
Irene gets no smiles, and the two ride back to the palace in silence. And anger is just like it's like wafting off of Chaos, and she genuinely still doesn't understand why he's upset,
No,
which
it
is
absolutely
surprising.
except for, like, the fact that it's obvious, in general, that'd be me too, because sometimes I say things, I put my foot in my mouth, and I would have a moment of like, "Oh,
You?
shit, what
Yeah,
thank
you're
you."
like very sassy with men. I love
Yeah,
it.
things just, like, come out of my mouth, and I'm like, "Ooh, whoops, was
Ooh,
that too much?
oof.
We okay?" I can understand, like, the anxiety of, like, "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," like, she's thinking back over everything she said, but, like, it feels like it's an obvious, like, "How'd you miss that?"
Mhm.
She although when she, like, starts fast walking ahead of Kale, I have a moment of, like, he's being rude,
Yeah.
and she's like, "I'm not taking your attitude,"
Uh-huh.
and I appreciate that, though, because she's like, "Great, see you at your room. Bye." But she runs right into caution.
who's like, can I send that dress that's stained to the laundry for you? And I don't know if that's supposed to be the way that we see the contrast of Nezrin and Irene, the way that they handle Kale, if this is because like Kale didn't mention the stain. And I don't know if that's supposed to be him accepting her as she is and Caution trying to change her. Like, I don't know if that's like a deeper meaning. I personally would love a man taking my shit to the cleaners, but I guess it is like a difference.
It's interesting because like Caution is a warrior, you know? So like there's on one hand, like the way that they dress or the way that they look is not their priority right
Yeah.
now. But I guess maybe because he's in the castle and he's falling back on previous training, it is interesting that he points that out when Chaos just like, it is what it is.
Well,
Leave it
one thing
alone.
Kale is not going to do is your laundry because, like, he couldn't even stay in the room when Aelin was on her period. Remember
So
how
true.
embarrassed he was? Like, imagine him seeing your period panties
Oh, he would die.
that look like, I mean, woof.
Woof. Nobody needs to see that anyway. Caution arranged for more guards to be stationed at the Torre after hearing what had happened.
He tells her to please be careful. When she starts to interrupt him, he's like, yeah, I heard you. I fucking get it. But we are, or we at least were, friends. And she still can't bring herself to even offer condolences for his sister. But she does mention his suspicions about the suicide maybe not being a suicide, which, if I'm Caution, I told Kay all that in confidence. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, he doesn't seem to be bothered by
Like,
it at
are you
all.
guys talking about
But
me?
yeah, are you guys talking about me?
I still don't really understand why she can't just relax and give condolences to Caution. Like, Caution's not a threat. Caution's not like, he might be a prince and could really force something to be his way if he wanted to, but she knows him enough to know he's not like that. So I don't understand why she's still having trouble communicating with him.
Our friend Kelly used to always say confidants. Like, I told you that in confidants. And I was like, I don't think that means what you think it does.
Well, because like a confidant
yeah.
is somebody you like.
But instead of confidence, she would say, I told you that in confidants.
That's so funny because she like makes an extension of that word.
But she said, I don't even know if I just, though, she put a K on another word that does not have a K. That was really funny.
What word?
Nazi. So we were trying to think of what the word is for hats that Nazis used to wear.
Okay.
And she Googled it. And when she showed me the Google image, I was like, wait a minute.
Why is it
you typed Kanazi? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, is this how you think it's spelled?
Maybe it's because not like K-N-O-T has a K.
I mean, she's like in her 20s.
Just like random connections. She's in her 30s now, but yeah. Well,
sorry, that went sideways. But
no, it relates in that she's like the way she chose to spell words. You're like, yeah, that's interesting. I also, if I was Caution, I don't think I'd be alarmed that Irene said anything about potential murder, not suicide, simply because as a healer, I could see she's working with Kale. I could see him like mentioning this, like, did you notice anything unusual about the body? Like maybe getting her perspective since she's not part of the actual
I still wouldn't
court
like
life.
it, and I would have follow-up questions like, was he in his undershorts? Were you guys in the bedroom?
Or Caution. It's like Dorian, like with Aelin and Dorian. He's like, okay, oh, we're still friends, right?
Are we still friends?
Okay, yeah. Bye.
Poor Dorian was so mistreated in the very beginning.
And I mean, maybe Irene's just awkward. Like, she does not know how to handle Caution because she just kind of shuts it down like, I've got to go.
Well, and you do have to do that with men. You can like smile at them and they think you're flirting.
But yeah, I mean, and that's
you exist and they think you're flirting.
I can't get out of a conversation anyway. Like sometimes with
people, don't say bye.
Some people I do. I'm like, bye. But like, there's some people that like, I don't know where to like, people, you know, like if you've ever worked with the general public, people will just tell you shit.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, I didn't ask that. And like, sometimes they unload something heavy and I'm like, I have to get back to work.
My boss
like, how do I round this out and get out of here?
My boss is big on uncomfortable silences that I always try to fill. But he'll just say things and then there's like a lot of silence and I hate it.
Well, I cringe at everything, so I would immediately try to fill that too. From your boss? That's funny.
Yeah. Not the other one.
Oh, I was like, good luck, Chuck.
Not the one with glasses.
But, well, Irene runs off and Kale catches up to her. He's like, ugh.
Well, this whole time he's been pushing his chair as fast as his little hands can go.
He's like racing down the hall.
Like he literally tore his hands up. He needs gloves. Irene and Kale bicker all the way to the room where Irene gives Kaja another bullshit assignment. but Nezrin is also there, and she's shocked to learn that Kale rode a horse today. Like, she is very excited. She's hopeful, but her reaction makes Kale and Irene flinch. And I hate like this is the part we were talking about. It pisses me off because Nezrin was just excited like there seems to be some progress. She might get to show him the city, like she wants to take him to meet her family and to see their home, like, and that makes them cringe.
I don't understand either because that's honestly how I would reply. I would say it in prompting to have you tell me more about it. Like, "Oh my gosh,
Right.
you actually got to ride? Tell me more."
Tell me
Like,
more about it. Yeah.
and the fact that Irene can be perceptive about that, but not realize that dropping him off a horse into child's hands is not
Yeah,
a
fuck
problem. Like,
them. And in this moment, respectfully, fuck Irene and Kale. But if you want to cringe, like, go reread that scene where Nesta apologizes to Amryn on her knees. Or the scene where Cassian says, "Let go of the stones and bones, and then you and I can play." He says that in front of everyone. Those are the scenes that make me cringe the most.
yes, it just like
It's uncomfortable.
is dumb. Nezrin leaves and Kale wheels himself to the bed where he tells Irene exactly why he's so upset. How he felt being treated like an experiment, like a lesson for the acolytes today.
He at least expresses his feelings, like not just the anger and embarrassment he felt today, but the feeling of everything he had planned, everything he wanted, it all being gone. All he has left is Dorian and this small scrap of hope that they can survive this war and make something of it.
She asks, "Of what?" And he answers, "Of everything that crumbled in my hands. Everything." His voice breaking on the word.
My Shayla. I go back and forth with Kale. I'm like, God, what an asshole. And then I'm like, oh, this poor guy.
Well, good for him, though. He's actually saying like what he's thinking and feeling.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like with the difference in the way that he communicates with Nezrin and with Irene.
But also, Nezrin doesn't push him. Nezrin is very
right.
like even keeled, which is great. But you got to push Kale a bit. He's in his feels a lot.
Irene apologizes, but Kale is still upset. He strips down to his undershorts and lies on his stomach. An explanation of her behavior, not just today, but since they met. Like why she's so angry, why she is so triggered by Kale's very existence. She explains soldiers from Otterland burned her mother alive when she was 11. But before he can even react to that, she lays her hand on his spine, and all Kale knows is darkness and pain.
She kind of like
just throws that out there. But that's also something she's never told anyone before, other than I think Haviza.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
It's not funny, but I just imagine when Kale's like climbing on the bed and dropping, it's all in such a huff. And I'm like, he's like just pouty, like, like laying on his tummy. Like, okay. Kale is shown, here's what you missed on Glee of his worst memories on repeat. Nehemia, Aelin looking at him as her enemy again, Sorsha, Dorian in his collar era, his men hanging from the castle gates.
It's a lot like when Aelin faced the Volg at Mistward, when Sam and Nehemia and like everyone that she felt that she had let down was lining up to whip her. But it's not all bad. Like he tries to think about that burning rose that Aelin left on his nightstand beside the lotion and tissues. King Dorian embracing him, and there's like this flicker of white light, but the darkness just keeps dragging Kale back down, like it's feeding on his self-loathing and guilt and shame.
Until that white light slams into him, creating a barrier between him and the darkness. Kale opens his eyes and sees Irene with blood running from her nose. When she tries to play it off, Kale gives her more space on the bed and tells her to lie down.
She tells Kale the darkness showed her Morath and its army. Then she heard his internal screaming, and she finally realized, like after all these times that she's gone in, the wall was a distraction. She followed Kale's screams, and it was so focused on what it was doing to him, like punishing him, that it didn't see her coming.
I mean, in her defense, she's never encountered anything like this. So, like,
no, I don't think anyone has.
Right. But how am I supposed to figure out what's going on? So if she hadn't heard Kale's screams, this like ongoing...
What do you think he sounds like when he screams?
A natural pain probably would have gone on for a while.
I've just never really heard a man scream.
Since we've talked about this before, but since I can't really scream, I can't really like imagine...
I'm going to get you to scream one day.
It'll just sound like loud, like bellow. I don't know.
Bellow. I have tried to even like when we're traveling and like scare you, because like I do this thing where I hide and then I try to pop out with people. They hate it, and you still don't scream.
I honestly like my mind takes way too long to catch up with what's happening. So like I might jump or like, oh, but like it's not. I couldn't like I don't know. My reactions are so
For
weird.
my birthday, all I want is a scream.
Well, prepare to be disappointed. Well, it'll be weird whatever happens. Contrary to what she previously thought, whatever is left in Kale has sentience to it. It's not a living thing, but as if a memory were set free in the world.
Again, kind of like a Horcrux.
Yeah, especially because it's like feeding on
Yeah.
these feelings. Kale says that he's sorry for what happened to Irene's mother, to so many children still living with those scars, like Aelin.
He finally opens up about the helplessness he felt watching the king murder what's her name? Just kidding, Sorsha. The guilt that he felt over leaving Dorian behind. Like he thinks that it should have been him. Like he didn't even really expect to be alive at this point.
Kale wipes a tear as it slides down Irene's
At
face.
least he doesn't lick it like Reese. I hated that. But it's obvious they're having a moment. Like this never happens with my doctors. Then Irene says Kale's name, possibly for the first time. Because before then it was like patient, captain of the guard, he like the hand of the king. Like she actually says Kale.
But I mean, I guess also when she's talking to him, you don't like you don't always look somebody in the face and be like, "Kale." Like,
Yeah.
she's already
Oh,
looking
I
at him.
never say people's names. They do that in movies and books and stuff all the time.
I mean,
But
like, if you're calling somebody's name to get their attention, maybe, but they haven't had moments like that yet. So I guess this is the first time she's had a need to directly address him in some
yeah,
way. But he follows her gaze to his toes that are slowly curling and uncurling.
the once silent dogs are once again barking. And it seems like it was Irene who did this, and like it obviously was with what she just did inside him. But it's also Kale opening up about his feelings and emotions. It's because those physical and emotional traumas are so connected.
Well, and it's still Kale is still building on what he knows about the Vogue. Like, although Aelin may have talked about how the Vogue feed on your terrible feelings, until they accept that what is inside him is still sentient, Kale hasn't registered that like this is connected in any way.
Well, he
So
has to admit that he has terrible feelings before he can admit that those terrible feelings are being fed on.
they are being released in some form right now, though. So like it is definitely a step in the right direction, Kale. I am proud of you.
We're so proud of Kale.
While all of this is happening, Nesrin is visiting her Aunt Zahida and Uncle Brahim's home in Rooney Quarter, where their 4 children are at school.
And Brahim is the shorter version of Ibrahim, the Arabic name for Abraham. I don't know why. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Not a lot happens in this chapter, to be honest. Maybe that's why I put that in there. It's just more getting to know Nesrin and her family and culture. Like, for example, men and women run their household together, and the Kagan decreed that every child, no matter how poor, had the right to attend school, meaning there's no Elid or Feyre left behind.
I also just think, like, as she's describing the house itself, it sounds gorgeous and so
Mhm.
relaxing. It sounds like an oasis. Like, I would happily spend a day, like, lounging there.
Well, it's like when we had the Palm Springs house a couple weeks ago. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like it's a it's desert. So, like, I don't know if I wanna live there, but you do have these, like, little like, we had, like, this little backyard oasis.
Yeah, and just, like, the flowers were so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Bright,
Oh,
colorful
desert flowers are
flowers.
so pretty.
So pretty. Nesrin tells her aunt and uncle about the attack at the Torre, and they promise to hire more guards, but they'd hoped that she'd bring a certain handsome guest with her.
At first, she thinks that they mean Kale, but fuck that guy. Tell us about Sartak, and you're right on his rook.
Ooh.
There's also a moment where her aunt gives her a knowing look and says, "The rooks will not fear the wyverns." Like, first of all, are there any secrets in this city? But how does she know about the wyverns?
I guess because like, that's how Rifthold was sacked, is
Yeah, I guess
the
the
witches on
word
wyverns.
it's just so it's like the differences between Antica and Rifthold of like information was kept from the people of Rifthold. They're like they don't know a lot about the outside world,
Well, and there's
but it's
so
just so
much
different in Antica.
on that continent, though, with the army spread out, like, I sure communicate I'm
I
sure the communication is just more difficult and broken in
Yeah.
general because you have to cross these different lines, but Antica is, like, open to everybody. We also learn, however, that Nesrin can sing.
I know that she and Kale are more of a situationship. They always have been. I just can't imagine hooking up with someone for as long as they have been hooking up, or even just like being friends for as long as they have known each other. and they just don't know each other at
Oh
all.
my god, they were on a boat for, like, what, 3 weeks? Y'all didn't chat? What are you doing on the
I
damn
would, by
boat?
the time of one day on a boat with me, you're gonna know my life
Oh my
story.
god, yeah, we're chatty.
We're just finally seeing the real Nezrin, like, with her family and even with Sartak, just here in Antica in general. And Kale is slowly letting Irene see past his bad attitude and bowl cut. But they've just never let their walls down around each other, so it's just never gonna work, and it's the same when you look at Aelin and like, Selena and Chaol versus Aelin and Rowan. Like, Selena and Chaol, even Selena and Sam, they fantasized about running away, about, like, having lives where they weren't even themselves. And, like, Sam and Chaol never knew all of Aelin.
I mean,
That's
it
why she needed someone like Rowan, someone who accepted all the parts of her, who saw her and wasn't afraid. Not that I think that Sam would have been afraid, but you know what I mean? Like, we never got that.
it just it's, like, not even that Aelin necessarily would have kept things, it's all about timing, it
It
seems like.
is. That's all life really is
Yeah, the
timing.
timing when they've met each other and how that they've known each other, like, so Nezrin and Chaol knew each other before, and it's hard to, like, change your perceptions of each other when you met a certain way. Not
It's
that that can't be done through talking because 'cause they're not even
mm-mm,
trying,
they're not trying.
but, like, these strangers, like, they're Irene might have some preconceived notions about Chaol, but she doesn't actually know
Mhm.
Chaol, so he's able to present himself anew in some form. You know, it's easier to tell her about his regrets because she wasn't there chiding him as they were happening,
That's a good
you
point.
know? I'm just assuming but all the time that they're able to, like, get to know these other people, it's really the timing. It's crazy.
It's like how every guy that we date, the next girl that they date, they
You're
marry.
welcome. Mhm.
It's all timing.
We're look,
If anyone out there is looking to get married, date us, dump us, and then you'll get married.
I'll give you a list of who's available. Isn't that a movie that's like Good Luck Chuck or like everybody after he dates
But it's
them gets
our
married?
real lives.
Just let me know. I'll go on a date with them and it'll change your life. You're welcome.
I'm also just happy that, like, I don't know, I'm not gonna say I love Kale. I don't hate Kale. I do think Nezrin deserves better than the Kale that she's gotten so far.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that SJM didn't try to force it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she opened them up to finding relationships that make them the best versions of themselves. It's kind of like a fart. If you have to force a fart, it's probably shit. So I'm just glad that we didn't try to force Nezrin and
I
Kale.
mean, you're so right with that line. I just wasn't prepared.
But what a way to end.
Yeah, I love that. We'll pick up next week with Empire of Storms chapters 20 through 23 and Tower of Dawn chapters 18 through 21.
And don't forget about KF Breen Month. Last week we talked A Ruin of Roses, and this week we are getting into A Cage of Crimson.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.